so you said they got in one fight with each other.
Correct.
And I believe when we spoke on the phone, you kind of separated them, and then we had talked about just kind of getting them slowly back together in the same room
Correct.
and stuff. And obviously, they're together again.
Yep.
So how did that progression happen for you?
Great. So what we did was we actually were doing some of the things already, because when I contacted you, it had been like multiple days
Yep.
since they got in that fight. But we had them each on leashes, like on separate couches
Sure.
with each family member. And just like slowly had them like sniff each other more and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And then we felt more comfortable to take at least Olive off the leash because she's super obedient. And then eventually we just did the same with Jovi.
Yep.
And they seem great. I mean, they're doing a lot better. I just would love to have some guidance.
Can you remind me what happened again? The
Sure.
fight?
Yes. So my son, who is a senior, so like there's like a few 18-year-olds over. They were all
So how many people live in the house?
4.
4. Okay. 2 kids and you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
sophomore, senior, and then us 2. So there were some girls sitting on the floor in the family room, and they were excited about like meeting the new dog. And Olive, our dog, was sitting near one of the girls.
Sure.
And Jovi came over to see one of the girls, and Olive like kind of like went out after her, and then Jovi just like fully retaliated, and like she had like a puncture.
So she kind of guarded the girl,
Yes,
and then
yes.
she just kind of took that as we're fighting now.
100%.
I gotcha.
And Olive like wouldn't even come down the stairs.
Yeah.
You know, like we had to make her do that. She was
Sure.
so scared. She's never had anything like that, and she's, you know, so.
I gotcha. Okay. Well, the positive, not that it's a positive, obviously, but the positive of that scenario is we could look at that scenario and we could understand exactly why it happened, right? Guarding with people, high arousal, stuff like that, is like recipe for disaster, especially when you have 2 dogs that don't have much of a relationship with each other to begin with, right?
Sure.
I equate, and what, she had been in the house just a couple days at that point, right?
Like a couple hours.
Oh, a couple hours. Oh, geez.
I know. It was bad.
Yeah.
I fully will take all
Listen,
responsibility for how bad
it's
this is.
again, and it's not even most people don't know how to properly do this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So it's not like I blame this on you by any means, right? But I look at you're introducing 2 new dogs with each other, and for the first, let's say even like couple weeks, typically speaking, when we're introducing 2 new dogs with each other, I completely eliminate basically any points of contention that there may be, and typically what those are food, toys, and affection. Right.
Yeah,
Those are the big 3 resources that if dogs are going to fight over something, 9 out of 10 times it's going to be over one of those 3 things, right?
Sure.
So in order to successfully implement those things into a household with multiple dogs, I have to make sure that the dogs have established we refer to as like their social hierarchy with each other first, right? Without any of those things to confuse everything, right? So basically what they're doing right now I see there's some toys out over there, stuff like that. Technically speaking here, since we're still in kind of like the honeymoon stages of like these dogs getting their relationship with each other, I probably wouldn't even have that stuff out at this point. Okay. And I don't know, what's their interaction with the toys been? Are they very into them?
Only Jovi plays with them right now. She doesn't really know how to. It's kind of like awkward to watch her. She like picks it up and
She's like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Olive, so that's the difference where Olive would go get a toy and play with us, or she'd go get a bone and chew it. And in the evenings, like she's almost like an only child, like knows how to like self-play.
Sure.
And she hasn't done any of that since Jovi's been here, so that's where I feel like her life.
Don't overthink that.
Is being.
Yeah. Don't overthink that. There's like you were saying, like the transition from 1 dog to 2 dogs is very different because you start realizing some of the places where when we have 2 dogs, the things we're used to doing with the one, there's certain things you just can't continue to do. You know what I mean? And listen, you could play with them and stuff like that, but when you look at like interactive toys, like a ball, a tug, things like that, chasing something, things like that, those are typically what we refer to as like antisocial dog behaviors, right? Meaning, yes, they'll interact with me doing that, but it's very difficult for 2 dogs to play fetch with each other, or 2 dogs to play tug with a human with each each other. Like sometimes they'll tug with each other,
Right.
but for the most part, if I'm playing that game with one of my dogs, I can't really do it with my other one present as well, right? Unless I have really, really great control over things. Like at this point, I could do those things with my dogs, but that's because my dogs are so well trained at this point
Right.
that if I'm playing tug with this dog and the other is like, oh, I want to do that and wants to come over and butt in,
Yeah.
I can make sure that dog doesn't do that. Right, or vice versa, right? Or if I'm throwing a ball with them, like at this point, I can play. We play with the chuck, like where we chuck the ball, they go chase after it, this, that. I can do that with all my dogs at this point because I've spent a lot of time creating routines where whichever dog is about to get it, I could get all the others to heed to that dog while they get that ball, so it doesn't create a fight.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Because you figure
Makes sense.
if I just have two dogs that are really into a ball and I just throw that thing and they both go for it,
Attack each other.
of course, you know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe not attack each other, right? But it's going to cause a little squabble. And if they don't have that social hierarchy established with each other, what's going to happen is it is going to turn into this big point of contention and conflict that will then turn into a fight.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure. Okay.
So the good thing is, like, I try to look at, like, when I meet dogs that are getting into fights with each other, I look at, like, baseline, what's their relationship with each other. Baseline, we don't have any toys they're playing with. We're not giving affection to any of them, right? And there's no food out right now. This looks really great.
It does.
This is what I want them to, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
like if you were to come into my house, like after the initial excitement of like, oh, there's somebody here,
Right.
this is what my dogs do, right? I got 4 of them. One's over there, one's over there, one's over there, one's over there, you know? And, you know, they've all been together for a long time at this point, and like, yeah, like some of them have like their individual relationships with each other where like one likes this one a little bit more, one likes this one a little bit more, et cetera, et cetera. But for the most part, they're just kind of neutral with each other, you know? Like they don't have to be playing all the time. They don't have to love each other all the time. They're just like existing. Like they're part of my pack, right? We're in this house and this is cool, right?
And I would say when they have something to do, like when we walk them
Sure.
together, or when they're barking like at the mailman or at a squirrel or something, they're like right next to each other,
Yeah.
barking at something, and they're not competing.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Those get into then outside factors. So this is baseline, right?
Yeah.
There's no outside triggers that are influencing their behavior right now, right? This is what I look at when I look at this. I look at this is what I'm striving for pretty much all the time.
Okay.
Right? You know, if we're playing and doing things
Yeah.
like that, like we get into that, you know, how do we play with them together, this, that, right? That's different, right? Like we could have more energy and stuff like that, and they can go enjoy each other in the yard and stuff like that. But then I look at outside factors and how do I make sure then, knowing that the outside factors are the problem, like I could tell these two dogs don't have a problem with each other. Right? I'm not seeing a dog that's scared of the other dog or anything like that here. I think that you're probably putting a little bit of the human emotion at play.
That's fair.
Only because, like you were saying, you're used to seeing the things you would do with her as a single dog,
Right.
And you're looking at like, oh, well, she can't do those things because the other dog is present, right? And you're looking at that as like, oh, she's being restricted of something.
Right.
Where I just look at that as like, no, it's just she's got another dog now, you know? So like she doesn't need to do those things, right? And also, in addition to that, it's going to take time for them to really establish that relationship with each other. So we have a new puppy. He's like, we just did the math the other day. He's like 9 months or something like that at this point. And he got along really well with my two female pitties. They were great with him. They play with him, stuff like that. That was no problem. But my Malinois that I have, who's like an older male, he's pretty crotchety, you know, like he's just kind of, he's Vinny, right? Vinny hated this puppy initially, right? He wasn't trying to attack him or anything like that, but he was just so annoyed that there was this like annoying little puppy around all the time. Legitimately, for the first probably like 4 months that I had this puppy, Vinny would like lay on the ground, and this puppy's just like a happy-go-lucky little puppy, and he would go run over to Vinny, and Vinny would growl at him and then get up and go walk away, right? And that was like basically 4 months of him just doing that, right? And they play with each other now. You were over a couple weeks ago, and you know, they're playing with each other, and Vinny likes him and this and that, but like it took him time for him to realize like, oh, this thing's just here, and it's fine. And I didn't look at this of like, oh, Vinny, like you're not happy anymore, and this and that. It's just like, dude, like you gotta tolerate the new dog in the house. It's not that big of a deal. Like how old is she?
We think maybe like 7 to 9-ish.
Oh, that's it? She looks a little older than that.
That's what we thought too, but her face has always had that ticking.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Healer.
So 7 to 9, whatever, you know, she's got a lot of years as being a single dog, right? So here's the thing. That's going to take her some time to get used to also. And I'm not going to look at that as like, oh, she wants to be the spoiled only child, so like she's sad now, even though I don't think she's sad right now. You know, she's sad now, so like, oh, this is going to be bad for her, something like that. I look at it as like, you got to tolerate the dog, right? It's not that big of a deal, and they will start to like each other. You know what I mean? They will start to establish that relationship. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Good, guys.
This is Scott.
Just checking out the pups here. Cool. And
Scott.
nice to meet you, David.
Nice to meet you, David.
It's Paige.
It's Paige.
Hi, Paige. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I was just kind of explaining, and even that right there, so that you start getting in outside variables, like outside of baseline, right? We have affection coming in, we have somebody coming in that's creating arousal, stuff like that. That looked pretty good, you know? Like they were excited, obviously, but they were respectful of each other's space and everything. And you did a good job, probably not even being aware of it, obviously, of how you were sharing affection with them. It wasn't a lot of people in that situation will come in and be like, hey, puppies, and like get both of them over and smother them and this and that. It was kind of like, hey, dog, right? Great. That's exactly how I interact with my dogs, right? I kind of said, get into multi-dog. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I've got a few of them. So one of my trainers has 5. So, or does she have 6 now?
Bridget has 7.
7, Jesus Christ. Now they're all really little, so it's a little different, but still, that's a lot of dogs. That's a lot of
All
dogs.
chihuahuas.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All chihuahuas except a beagle and another beagle mix.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but anyways, so I kind of have general rules in multi-dog household management that I look at as far as, how I give those resources, those outside variables we talk about that create competition. So we were talking about the incident that you guys had. It's unfortunate it happened, but we could look at that situation. We could understand exactly why that happened, right? They just met each other. They haven't established a relationship with each other at that point. And you have a dog that's used to being an only dog, right? So she's not used to needing to share affection with another dog at that point, right? And you have outside people that don't live in the house, obviously coming in. That creates even more excitement and more arousal with things, which creates a problem, right? And unfortunately, then you get to the other side of things. Obviously, she has a little bit of pity in her or something. You could probably tell, right? And not that I think pitties are bad dogs by any means. I have 2 of them myself, right? But there is something too, like when they fight, it's a little bit more intense usually.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's something to be aware of. Like my 2 are very social, but I don't even know if I told you this over the phone, but like when they first met each other, the one was my wife's dog, the other was my dog. And in the first like couple months of us dating each other, I was out of town, she was watching the 2 dogs, and they got in a horrendous dog fight with each other. Like full on like knockout, drag out, like emergency vet visits, blood everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
Dog fight with each other. It was brutal, right? And I wasn't even there, So
Able to break it up, or did
she had a friend over at the time, so that's the only reason they were able to break them up, So it was scary for sure, and they're both bigger than them as well.
Okay.
So all of that to be said, we were able to look at that situation and understand why it happened. Same deal. There was a friend over, right? There was outside variables. The dogs hadn't developed a relationship with each other because we weren't living together at that point, right? And she kind of did certain steps a little bit incorrectly, which led to that arousal and that fight.
Yeah.
And we slow introduced them back together, just like you guys did, obviously. Yeah. And they haven't had a problem with each other since.
Yeah.
They've been totally fine, and it's been years now at this point that they've been together with each other. So I say that as like a positive of, yes, it sucks that they got in a fight with each other, but it's not the end of the world. To dogs, like after fights happen, it's kind of just like, all right, well, that happened and we're past it, To humans, we hold that emotion and it's like, oh my God, I'm so scared that it's going to happen again,
Yeah.
So all we can do as humans, obviously, is look at the situation, just make sure we prevent it moving forward as they develop that relationship with each other, right? So all of that to say, so everything looks pretty good so far here. I want to make sure that you guys are aware of how to add those resources in and how to make sure outside variables don't create a problem, right? So we were talking about food, toys, affection. Those are the big 3 things that are going to create fights. So how do I control those things? Right now, they're still I was telling her, kind of like the honeymoon stages of developing a relationship with each other. So right now, I basically take all of them and just kind of push them to the side for a couple of weeks, So it doesn't look like they play with the toys very often, but I probably, to be safe about it, maybe would put them away and take them out for like an hour or 2 at a time, let them interact with them, stuff like that. And then with toys, my big thing is when I add them in, I Make sure that nobody's stealing toys from each other or anything like that. That's a big
Yeah.
place that we'll see problems happen, is if she's playing with a toy and she wants to come over and try to take it, that's going to create conflict, or vice versa. So I want to be in a position where I could step in and intervene if I see that happen. And if you do designate like times where it's like, okay, here's an hour where you guys both get to have a toy kind of thing, you could make sure you supervise that and make sure that it doesn't turn into a problem, right?
Got it.
Food, what's your feeding routine with them right now?
I feed Olive here and I feed Joey there.
No problems with it?
No.
Do they eat all their food when you put it down and then it goes
Olive
away?
doesn't always eat all of her food.
Yeah, we started giving her a little bit of dog food, so she will, and it's great. And I can put my hand in Joey's bowl while she's eating, and she's like super fine with that.
Cool.
Joey will always come and lick Olive's bowl when she's done. Stop that.
Stop that right away.
Got it.
Yeah. So again, same concept. It's not a problem right now, but that's one of the biggest places that we'll see people call me that they're like, oh, I've had this dog for a year or 2 years, and every day when we feed them, they're fine, and then when they're done, comes over and licks the bowl and this and that, and then boom, dog fight happens
Okay.
one day, you know? So multi-dog household management, I look at, again, like proactively preventing things from happening moving forward. Feeding time, this is your bowl, this is your bowl. Once you're done with yours, your bowl goes away. Once you're done with yours, your
so
bowl goes
okay.
away. Yeah.
Okay, how do you feel about them both drinking out of the same water bowl?
Water's fine. Yeah, water rarely ever creates a problem, you
Okay.
know? So water, I don't care about. You can
Because
have,
they both drink out of both.
yeah, that's fine.
throughout the day. Okay.
Water, I don't care about. It's mostly just food.
Okay, so to pick the bowls up, okay.
Yeah, pick the bowls up once they're done. And same deal, as you're watching it, good thing one's here. So you could watch it. She starts trying to go over and go for that bowl. No, you know, keep her in this area, keep
Yeah.
them in this area until they're finished with it. Do you do a lot of treats and stuff with them?
Not really a ton.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Some people get real crazy with treats, man. I mean, listen, it's not wrong to give your dog treats, but like, I don't see a need for it. I don't know, you know? My dogs love their dog food, so if I need to reward them for something, like here's a little handful of kibble,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's healthier for them. I don't have to spend a bunch of money on treats and stuff, so
Yeah.
it makes it significantly
Really
easier.
Julie to get her in her crate.
In her crate,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's fine. Like I said, I don't have a problem with if you're doing it. You know, there are definitely places, there's a time and a place for it. Like my mom bought her dogs like Easter treats like the other day, and
cute,
it's like,
right.
I know, you
Yeah.
know. So same deal. Like I've been using them when they go in their crates, like here's one, you know. But if you are gonna give them, same concept. One treat for you, one treat for you. Make sure there's separation with it. Make sure nobody's competing for the other one kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? And then the biggest one, obviously affection, the way you're sharing affection and stuff like that. It's not that you can't pet two dogs at once, but I try to set a general rule that I don't let attention stealing happen, right? I always say it's my job to set those boundaries. So for example, I know she was having the little bit of like guarding of the person.
Yeah.
So that's something where if somebody else is interacting with her, you'll have to be aware of it, obviously.
Yeah.
But let's say I'm petting her and I'm hanging out here. Hello. I know, belly rubs, yeah. And let's say she were to start trying to come over because she's like, oh,
She typically
she's getting
does
affection.
almost every single time.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I would set a boundary with that, and I would tell her I would make her stop, right?
Okay.
And vice versa. Come here. Come here. Are you nervous? Sure is.
She's a little bit more nervous with men than
Men, yeah.
That's okay. Yeah. And I'm not going to push it, obviously. My general rule for interacting with dogs, and this is something else to be aware of if you do notice that she is weird with men, is don't let people go invade into her space.
Okay.
Right? I set a general rule where I call the dog to me, right? If they come to me, I'll interact with them. If they don't, that's fine. Right? She doesn't want it right now.
Yeah.
If you push it at that point, that's where you get into like you kind of back them into a corner a little bit.
For
You'll
sure.
see more territorial behaviors and stuff.
What do you think, baby girl?
So as far as those types of things, that's obviously one side of things is what's happening inside of the house, how you're administering those resources and stuff. The other thing then would be as she gets more comfortable in particular, if you start noticing a lot of reactivity out the window or barking at neighbors or this
That's
or
just
that.
started with her.
Yes.
She didn't bark for the first, I don't know.
That's something you'll want to try to get a handle on right away.
Yeah.
You know, we want to make sure obviously we're preventing those things from happening moving forward. And you got a couple different ways you could do that. Honestly, given that she seems a little kind of sensitive and stuff, you may be able to get away with something as simple as there's something called a pet corrector, which is like a little can of compressed air. And basically you use it to interrupt behavior. So let's say she was barking out the window right there. Let's say I had my pet corrector right here. I could tell her no, right? Grab that pet corrector, walk over, give give a little spray with it, and that typically will startle them out of that behavior and get them to stop doing that.
Okay.
Right? So again, barking out the window together, I know you said they would kind of do it and there wasn't a problem. As that behavior intensifies, as she gets away with rehearsing it for longer and longer periods of time, what you'll start to see in some cases what we refer to as like redirected aggression, which is not like I want to attack her. It's simply I'm frustrated. There's something out there I want to get to, so I'm just going to kind of turn and grab whatever's closest to me.
Yeah.
You know? And we just want to make sure we don't see any of that kind of stuff. So that would be the other variable you would want to look at, is setting some boundaries in the house to make sure that there's some sort of like kind of discipline for stuff, you know?
Okay.
Now with her, what is there any sort of like negative behavioral issues you see in the house with her, or anything that she does that you would say is problematic?
Just the barking in the mailman.
Okay.
Yeah. Our mailboxes like used to be like little
Sure.
chutes, so they're on our.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So he comes all the way like over, so she loses her mind.
Yeah.
She licks her paws. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
7, 5, 4.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, honestly, like even walking up and stuff, they seem pretty well tempered. So we just want to keep that baseline, especially with her. Like even she seems really good. Like as I was walking up and stuff, I think she let out like one bark, but like it wasn't problematic by any means.
Nice so far. Olive's not really a big barker
Yeah.
at all, so that's like a huge bonus. So I'm hoping that that'll be a positive.
Yeah, I mean, they both
you know.
seem very well tempered, you know? So then you get into, so as far as the fighting and them establishing a relationship with each other, I'm pretty confident like you can get a handle on all of this like yourself. You know what I mean? Like implementing those techniques and stuff, having a way to start disciplining them. Obviously, I would get one of those pet correctors. I have one in my car. I'll show you what it is before I leave, obviously.
Anything with her being scared, like that's bad to do right now?
No. Don't overthink that kind of stuff. I mean,
Okay.
you know, obviously a lot of people will look at like we're correcting a scared dog, so it's going to make them more scared.
Right.
No, right? It's, just because she's scared doesn't mean that she could go and like rehearse some of these types of behaviors. So it may, in that moment, she may be a little timid and be like, oh, I'm just going to like go and put myself somewhere else or something. But because she's more timid, the point will stick more of I don't do this thing, right? She'll associate it with the behavior, not with like the person, or oh, I'm just getting corrected because I don't know what it is or anything like that.
Okay.
You know?
All right.
So past just that, then you get into, do you know how old she is?
I said 2.
2. Oh yeah, so she's pretty young. Then you get into just general training and stuff like that. That would be for just like general management, making sure you're proactively not running into behavioral issues moving forward. But that wouldn't really affect their relationship with each other, you know? A lot of this stuff, especially given what I'm seeing right now, I'm not seeing a massive problem that needs solved. I'm just seeing you guys needed to understand a little bit more how some of this stuff works.
There's no idea what we're doing with
Yeah.
dogs.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. It's just a lot of those things you're used to doing with one dog, you got to be more aware of because of the resource aspect of things.
Yeah.
So,
And our biggest concern is her behavior seems like she's down, right?
Right.
Did you share that?
Yeah,
we talked about that. Yeah.
Putting all the, we're like your mom, putting all these human emotions on
They're
our
fully
dog.
depressed.
Yeah. Listen, I get it, but I use the example of, I think it was before you got in, we just got a new puppy a little bit ago. He's like 7 or 8 months old now. And my 2 female pitties that I have, they're pretty social dogs. You know, they're not really fazed by a whole lot. So they got along great, the 3 of them, you know. My Malinois that I have, he's kind of like a crotchety old guy at this point, and he was pissed that we got this new puppy in the house. Pissed, right? It was like 3 or 4 months of like anytime this puppy would come up near him and try to get him to play with him or something, he'd like growl or let out a little bark and then like get up and walk away or something like that. And same deal, from the outside looking in, I could say, oh, he's mad or upset that we have a new puppy in the house. But like, guess what? He's got to get over it. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to be okay, right? And especially if, you know, in her case, you were saying she had the little bit of guarding tendency of a person. And I don't know if that's something that you've ever seen before, if she's ever been around very many other dogs with people to have seen it
She
before.
would always come in between us and a dog, always.
Yep. So that's kind of a part of like kind of built into her a little bit, and that's an unhealthy thing for a dog to rehearse in the first place. You know what I mean? And the only reason why it hasn't been a problem is because you haven't had another dog, right? So of course she's going to be a little upset initially of like, oh, well, like I can't do those things anymore. But like those things we're telling her not to do are things we have to get past anyways.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
And on top of that, like I said, like I know you're used to seeing her, like I think she was saying, like play with certain toys and things like that, and those are kind of the things you're not seeing her do. But I am not seeing a dog that's upset or scared or anything like that. Hey,
Hi, how are you?
good.
Hey, buddy.
This is Carter.
You know, I'm seeing a pretty content dog at this point, you know.
But even like how she's walking all the way around, like that'll change potentially.
Like,
Yeah, but
she'll
even-
go like all the way around like an ottoman to like not even like walk near her.
Yeah, but even that, like, I mean, she doesn't look, even though she may have taken a long route there, it didn't look like she was scared and that's why she was
Okay.
doing it. It just looked like maybe they're figuring out their relationship and where they're sitting with each other and they're learning to give each other some space, you know?
Okay.
And yes, that will get better, you know,
Yeah.
over time, obviously.
But that's not something to worry about.
That's nothing that I would worry about. That's actually positive, is that she's learning that instead of, you know, kind of bull rushing her way in between everybody and guarding people or things like that, that, you know, I'm going to give a little space because I'm learning that I can't do that, you
Right.
know?
She's obviously older, but she'll always let her go first out the door.
Sure.
And mainly because she's like so fast. And
Yeah.
Like it kind of like she doesn't have like her depth perception
Sure.
like, fully into like, this one.
Yeah.
That one. But Olive sometimes like will shake.
Mm-hmm.
Like if sometimes if both dogs are coming up to me, one of them will growl at the other. They're not showing teeth.
Mm-hmm.
It's very quiet, but then the other one growls, and then that makes me a little bit.
And she'll shake from that sometimes.
She will shake. She just starts like.
Paint that picture for me again. So what
I'll
exactly is happening?
I'll be like sitting on the ground, petting
Okay.
one, and then the other one comes over. And
Oh, I understand.
Growling.
Yeah. Well, that gets into, again, that would be a prime example. We talked about the 3 resources.
Right.
That's your job. Let's say you're petting her, right? And this one starts coming over.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to proactively set that boundary before she gets all the way over where she's going to start growling at her,
Yes.
or vice versa.
Okay.
You need to tell that dog to give some space.
Got it. Okay.
Right?
And that will-
So it's funny, like our dogs sometimes will show us how we should be training the other dog. You know what I mean? She's essentially saying, like, you know, right now she's guarding you, where it should be the other way around, right?
Right.
I should be guarding her,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to proactively set those boundaries. And if you start noticing, like, where is the point where one of them would start growling? Like, is it when they're like all the way right next
Oh,
to?
100%.
Okay.
Like almost.
I understand. Yeah. Yeah, and listen, that's intrusive, right? Like, I understand why they would be uncomfortable with that, especially if
Right.
they haven't fully developed that relationship with each other, right? So I'm going to start setting that boundary when the other dog gets like 3 feet away then.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
however you need to do that, sometimes it could just be a little touch of like, hey, you know, and a little
Yeah.
nudge or something like that. If they're really persistent about it, that's where sometimes I would use a discipline, like a pet corrector or something
Yeah.
like that, to set that boundary.
Okay.
But it's your job to proactively set that boundary and understand that's a point of contention that's very normal for dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, if that goes unchecked and we allow that to happen all the time, that can turn into a fight eventually, because that's what happened
That would make sense.
the first
Sure.
time. You know what I mean?
Is there any form of discipline that she is like deathly afraid of fireworks, thunderbolts?
Sure.
Like, is there any like stuff that's not super loud that we can use for her?
Yeah, I mean,
You know what I mean?
yeah, sure. So you could get into something like, for some dogs, like a spray bottle with water is effective. For other dogs, like a leash pop, like having a leash on them, telling them no, and popping the leash, you know, on some sort of corrective collar can be effective. You get into e-collars and stuff like that at that point are very effective for things. But I also wouldn't overthink, like I know she's scared of those types of things, obviously. Be that much more effective in that moment, you know? And it's not going to have this long-term residual. It's going to make
it's
her
not-
worse about the
And
fireworks and
maybe
stuff.
She is really scared of things, so I feel like if we use a loud sound to correct her.
Oh, I understand. She's going to be...
Like, shakes and hides in
Yeah.
for hours when the thunder. It's like awful.
Fireworks are the worst.
Fireworks are the worst.
Yeah.
She's a hot mess. So that's why I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
Is there a quiet way to, as we're training her?
Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you get into something like that, like something like an e-collar or a spray bottle or something like that might be the
Okay.
easiest, because it doesn't have that much like residual effect on like everybody in the area,
Right,
you know?
right.
But it's funny, like I look at, with my dogs, and typically speaking, if I need to correct one of them for something, like all of them are kind of getting themselves into some sort of trouble. So like window, like really the big things would be the window reactivity, you know, that would be the primary thing you'd be giving like a more intense discipline or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And I'm gonna take an assumption that either both of them are going to be over there reacting at the window, where you would want to correct both of them,
Yes.
right? Or, right, one of them's doing it and the other's thinking about doing it and coming over there, where if they get a little bit of a residual correction, it's not a big deal. Or, right, it's going to be one of them's doing it and the other is off somewhere else, like just not doing anything. And at that point, it's not going to be a big
Got it.
deal.
Okay.
You know what I
So
mean?
if Jovi's coming up to me and Olive.
Yep.
Or Olive and I.
Yeah.
I can just try to like say no and keep that.
Yeah.
Try to use my hand as.
Whatever you need to in order to set that boundary. A lot of times just us proactively not allowing it to happen is enough initially. And then if we notice the dog is too persistent, that's where I would then discipline. But initially, you're just showing what the boundary is. I'm just showing them that if
Okay,
I'm
that makes
interacting
sense.
with you, you've got to stay a little ways away,
Yeah.
right? I'm not looking necessarily to punish for it
Right.
unless they don't respect that boundary, right?
I got it now. Yep. Okay.
So that's kind of how I look at those types of things.
Okay.
Questions on that stuff?
I don't think so. Do you have any questions?
No, I mean, it sounds like we're in a pretty good place.
You're in a great place. I thought they were still going to be separated when I got here, so I thought we were going to be fully introducing them and everything. But the fact that you guys have had them out, for a little while now and stuff like that is fantastic. And like I said, I was very impressed when I walked up. I was like, these are the two that are getting in fights with each other. Like,
Yeah.
it seems positive, honestly. So
Put Jovi in a crate when we're gone.
yeah.
And then Olive has her another house. Maybe that's when
Which is fine.
She wanted bones.
Yeah, and you could do that. Yeah, I mean, a bone in the crate is totally sufficient, and
Yeah.
I have no problem with one dog crated, other dog not crated. Like,
Yeah.
that dogs can have different rules.
Yeah.
What's the only other thing I would say is what's rules with like furniture and stuff like that?
We let them come on the furniture.
You do let them come on the furniture?
Yeah, she's like she's always been, and then she just is like a snuggle bug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only other thing I'd be aware of is furniture is another place where you could see a lot of contention initially with dogs, right? If they're both on furniture and like cuddling with you and stuff
Yeah.
like that, it's very similar to like the petting two dogs at the same time kind of thing, right?
Like opposite couches, maybe.
Yeah, something like that, just make sure if you notice one's on and the other is, even, we'll also see then because it's like an elevated position, say you're sitting here with one of the dogs
Yeah.
and the other dog walks by, if you start noticing any sort of defensiveness like of that positioning,
Yeah.
you might want to kind of nix that for a little bit.
Okay.
So, and you could have them on the furniture. I'm not anti-dogs on furniture by any means. It's just another place to be aware of
Sure.
that you could possibly run into issues with.
So in our daughter's room, like Jovi loves cat, and
Mm-hmm.
she'll hop up, and then sometimes Olive hops up too on
Yep.
her own, and they sit there. They don't do anything. Would
Mm-hmm.
you like not recommend that?
If they put themselves somewhere, I don't care, right? Like my dogs sometimes will go and like two of them will go lay on a bed together, right? Or two of them we recently kicked them off the furniture, but they used to be on the furniture and two of them would go and lay on the couch together or something like that. If they put themselves there, I don't care. But if it's a situation where it's like, again, I'm sitting here and I'm hanging out with this dog and the other wants to come over and jump up next to, that's where it starts getting dicey because you have the human element with
Yeah.
things. So let's say I'm hanging out on my bed, right, and I'm doing work or on my phone or something like that, and I'm not even interacting with the dogs, and they both just come and jump up onto the bed, I don't have a problem. That's fine.
Okay.
But again, you start getting into if you're then interacting and it's becoming this kind of like a social, intimate thing and stuff like that, then you want to start being more aware of it.
Okay.
So it
Right.
really comes down to what's the outside element with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Other questions on those things?
I think we're in a really good place.
Yeah.
I think so as well.
Like we're not doing some things right for sure, but now that we.
It's just a couple tweaks, it's
Yeah.
the going from one dog to two dog tweak, which is very normal that we see a lot of people have to make. So I think
Like
you guys
going
are,
from one kid to two kids.
except you can't communicate as easily with them.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So yeah, no, I think you guys are in a good spot right now. I think what we should do is you should roll with some of those things we talked about here, and what we'll do is we could do a follow-up, obviously, since we're doing just kind of like a half session here now. We'll do like a follow-up in a couple weeks and just see how things are going and see if there's anything else we need to adjust or anything like that. Just make sure you guys are on the right track. But just be, don't be scared, but be hyper aware of stuff.
Yeah.
And just make sure you really factor in all of those places outside of this where there might be some outside variables that could create some contention, just until they get a little bit better of a relationship with
Got it.
each other.
One more quick question before
Yeah.
we head out.
No, you're fine.
So if Olive is like guarding me or
Mm-hmm.
any one of our family, how do you how do you?
The guarding typically happens after we've failed to set the boundary.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because like she's not, if she's sitting with you, she's not going to growl at another dog that's 5 feet away.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's only if the other dog comes in and tries to proactively like push her out of the way or something. And that's my job to set that boundary so that she could see me set that boundary so she feels she doesn't need to do that.
Got it.
You know?
Okay.
Then if it persists at that point, then I would discipline my dog for it if they persisted at that point. If the other dog wasn't doing anything, right, and she's getting snarky for whatever reason, then I would start telling her, hey, you can't do that.
Okay.
So.
All right.
That's good.
All right.
My last question is,
Sure.
if our kids don't follow these instructions, do
Can
you
we
have
bring it up
any
here?
proof that these were cleaned up
Yeah.
or anything that we can send them to you and they can do work for you for free?
We'll see. Yeah, I mean, like I said, they look good. I'm not seeing a lot of issues between them right now. You know, I think you had a rough first day. You know.
Stay and I just didn't know like the growling.
Yeah.
You know, and I just was like, I don't.
Well, the growling is something to be aware of, you know, but it's because of the things we talked about.
Correct.
You know.
Yeah. I want their lives to be enriched. Like I want them
Sure.
to enjoy.
You're playing the long game with that.
Yeah.
You know, it will, right? But it's normal that one of them may not be thrilled about there's another dog I have to share all my things with now.
Right.
That's normal,
It's like
you know?
two strong leaders together in a room.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And it takes a long time for them to learn how to get along. So
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
That's fair.
So,
good.
All right. Well, thanks for your time.
no problem. Just keep me posted. Give me a call in like a week. Let me know how things are going, and then we can do a little brush up in like a week or two.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there.
Great.